Good to go.
Hey, hey, hey. Are we rocking and rolling?
We are.
We are rocking and rolling like for reals? So exciting. I'm so excited to be able to take your podcast hostage. That's really fun. Hey, hey, friends. Welcome to Michael Morales's podcast, Musings with Morales. If you haven't followed him, you really need to. He's one of my favorite guys in healthcare. And my name is Kimberly Langford. I'm Vice President of Clinical Services, Specialty Care Management, nurse, Reiki Master, all kinds of things, mom, grandma, and super excited to have a non hostile takeover for Michael Morales and Musings with Morales. So, hey, Michael.
Hey, Kimberly.
Hey,
How
how
are
the
you?
heck are ya?
I'm good. Yeah, just enjoying the home life right now.
Oh, that's awesome because it's a long weekend and I really need one.
Yeah, I definitely could use a little breather this weekend as well. Thanks for taking over today and giving me the opportunity to be on the other end of the interview.
Yeah, well, you're one of my favorites. And gosh, how cool to get to take over here and interview you. Um, and if folks don't know you, I figured, well, shoot, perhaps you could share a little bit about your journey with us and what brought you to this place. I know, um, I think probably why the work that you do stands out for me personally is that simply, you really do. Um, like we were talking about earlier, you share with a delicious amount of authenticity, just a real value on all kinds of topics. Obviously, you're passionate about health and the kidney disease space, dialysis, wellness, uh, entrepreneurship, personal development, and your podcast. You have such a diverse range of guests
Yeah, we do.
that you talk with. Yeah, from patients and people in healthcare, thought leaders, business folks, sports stars, your MMA I was listening to last night.
Yeah,
And
that was a
so,
great show the other day we had with Raja Jackson.
you know,
Yeah,
and we can learn a lot, I really think, in business and in healthcare. We can learn a lot in healthcare. We can learn a lot from manufacturing and from sports. There's a lot of lessons there. But what what was it that inspired you? Because you obviously, if anybody knows you for 5 minutes, they know that you live and work with purpose and passion. So, what is it that inspired that?
I really appreciate you saying that. Coming from somebody like you, you know, it goes right back at you, Kimberly. I got to know you a little bit and saw the same authenticity, the same care. Wasn't enlightened to kind of all the things you do outside of healthcare, but it makes a lot of sense. Hearing about your Reiki journeys and just the spirituality that you bring to what you do, and even just talking about uh, how you appreciate your hometown. The description you just gave me before we got on camera. It makes a lot of sense to me now why we've clicked so well. As far as purpose, yeah, I've I think I've always been that way about everything that I do, and I've done a lot in my life. Some of it by accident, some of it by circumstance, but it all kind of came full circle. Um, I'll say the thing that I started doing right out of high school, uh, I did by accident and circumstance of following my dad's footsteps into construction, and I
Mm,
absolutely hated it. The stuff.
really?
Yeah, I hated it. There were things I liked about it. It was rough, and you didn't have to go to the gym because I was a union iron
Yeah.
worker, a
The
rod
job would
buster.
work out.
Yeah, man. I got
Yeah.
home and it was like 8 hours of work, but it felt like 24 hours of work. My body was dead. I mean, hurting.
Yeah.
I would hit the couch like full of grease and dirt, and like I would hit the couch with it and take a long nap as soon as I
Yeah.
got home, and then go take a shower, and then eat, and then go to bed and do it again the
Yeah.
next day. And one thing I saw there was like it was a fun day, like working with a bunch of folks like my dad and my uncle and people that were out there, cussing and swearing, and it was just it was a roughneck group, right? But it was a lot of what we call now productive conflict that
Mhm.
you know out there in the
Yeah.
field.
Gives you energy.
Oh man, it gives you energy, but
Yeah.
it makes the goal more attainable when you have people
Mhm.
that are again productively. Maybe in our setting today, the type of productive conflict we had out there in the field wouldn't be the right mix, but we had to like place so many pounds of steel a day, and
Mm.
that banter back and forth with each other was part of how we got each other to work hard and
Oh,
get the goal
yeah.
done, right? And talking about the athletes, we talked about that the other night. Productive conflict among athletes. If you go to any sort of team, you'll see the same sort
Yeah.
of banter. It's not always
Yeah.
friendly.
Our military.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
always friendly, right?
Yeah.
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 So
Well, I don't know. I think there is an undercurrent of friendliness there.
yeah,
It is different. It's not warm and fuzzy, nurturing kind of friendliness,
that's
but
right.
yeah, it's like, hey, you take care of your business because I'm taking care of mine,
Yeah,
and yeah,
yeah, yeah. And I think that one thing I learned out there is like if people aren't messing with you, they probably don't like you. We talked about
yeah,
genuine,
and they
like
don't care.
people are really hungry for that genuine side of things, right? And that genuine nature of a
Oh
person.
yeah,
And I think when you can have that banter, it's pretty healthy for all teams. But I really didn't like what I was doing then, and it took me a little while to kind of figure out that great money, great benefits. Um, at the end of the day, when I go back tomorrow, all the work I did was covered up with concrete. So it was kind of hard to feel, I don't know, any connection to what I was doing. Um, there was interaction with
mm,
people,
oh,
there was interaction with devices and tools and things like this, but I didn't really have anything to go home and think about. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but today I know that, when I wake up in the morning, I've got something on my mind. And when I go to bed at night, I've got something on my mind, and it's usually aligned with each other. It's usually helping people. It's usually empowering people. It's usually
yeah,
helping people to navigate whatever it is they're going through. And over the years, like I said, I've done a lot of things. I've always been into fighting and martial arts, and I did a lot of stuff with youth when I was a younger man, with city diversion programs to where they would identify the gang members in the city, the kids that were really at risk, and they would put them in different
mm,
sort of programs, mentorship programs. So I did that with some pretty rough neighborhoods here in Los Angeles, and found a lot of value in that. So it was a teaching type of role. Um, and
yeah.
then it started raining, and construction got slow for me. And I don't know if you know, but I grew up with a dialysis patient. My uncle was on dialysis, home hemodialysis, from the time I was born
Yeah.
till about 38. Um, so uh, over 38 years on home hemodialysis. And as a teenager, I learned how to help him with the machine and with his needles in his arms. And, I didn't know it all, but I learned how to help him. And I had the
Mm,
opportunity out of high school to do that, but I was like, nope, I want to go do construction. I want to make a bunch of money. I want these benefits. I was just hungry to not have to go to school. And to be honest with you, at that time,
yeah.
I didn't really see myself helping people who had illness. That was tough for me to kind of think of myself in that
Yeah.
role. So
But it was in your blood.
it
Well,
was
I
in my
think
blood.
two things really stand out. It was in your blood, and a lot of people come into healthcare because they've had a personal experience.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I think the other thing that really stands out there is that for a lot of us, and the force is strong with you, Paro, right? Where there's a drive and a hunger to be able to contribute um, in a significant way.
yeah,
I mean, everything you've done in your life has really been, to me, seems like it's really driven by the need to contribute in a significant way, something
Yeah,
that's going to outlast us.
yeah, I would agree with that. Starting with kind of the kids and the diversion programs. Uh, a lot of people, they may look at those type of kids or adults and say they're not worthy of time or love. Kind of lock them up and let the system deal with them, right? And I was really able to kind of look past that, and see the good in people. And to tell you the truth,
Mm.
like I really believe that you know all of us have good, all of us have good in us, and
If you
especially
look
when,
for it, you'll find it.
yeah, yeah, and it's kind of like somebody needs to find it in some cases for those people to find the good in themselves, because they can be told they're bad and they can be told that they're not worthy. But when somebody
Yep.
recognizes that, like, hey, you're really sharp, you're really kind, you're really, you know, I can't tell you how many people I found that are God-fearers. They follow God in different levels of faith, different denominations, religions, that are labeled as, undesirable. So that was kind of a start to, I guess, the empathy for me, that was really
Mm.
needed in healthcare. And like I said, it started raining when I was working construction, and it was like, well, you can go work dialysis. You know how to do it. This was brought to me by
Oh,
family. My aunt was a nephrology nurse. She was like, go do it, right? So while it was raining,
ah.
I went and I went and worked as a dialysis technician, and then it stopped raining, and I went back to construction, and I did that a couple times, and eventually I was
Mm.
like, hey, start to connect the dots, Morales. It's like, you have empathy for people, and by the way, I ran into a lot of dialysis patients that fell in the same category as the kids that I worked with. Uh,
Oh,
as
absolutely.
Yeah, that I
Yep.
typically worked in like the more inner city urban type of dialysis facility where not only did they have chronic
Yep.
illness and were they very sick, but they also had tough lives that tough
Yeah.
cards dealt to them that a lot of people just couldn't really understand. And I found myself just sitting down
Yep.
eye to eye with people and able to actually have conversations with them. I dare to say that to offer them love, companionship,
Hmm.
support, understanding, navigation of what they're going through.
Dignity.
Because
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
I mean, so I understood the hard side of just life as a whole, and then I had a general understanding of what I saw my uncle go through with his dialysis journey, and having to navigate diet and medications and limitations on his time because he was stuck to the machine. So I really found a passion, and I said, I'm gonna stick with this. And I was a clinical technician, Kimberly, a
Mhm.
biomedical technician, a water specialist. I really dove all the way in once I decided to dip my toes into the healthcare
So,
world.
so interesting for people who don't know, because a lot of people don't know. As a matter of fact, I was sharing this story with some of our sales guys about. Tell us a little bit. What's a water technician for somebody who doesn't know? What's the big deal with the water in dialysis?
Oh God, the big deal. So
Mhm.
I'll have to go back to the first time it really made sense to me. Because at home, my uncle had a water system outside of his house, like on the other side of the den. His machine was on you know, just the other side of the wall of it. We'd sit down, we'd watch TV, he'd dialyze, and there's this solution going through the dialyzer called dialysate, right? And he had a couple jugs there, but every month somebody would come and check and maintain this water system that was outside of the house, like on the walkway of the side of the house, right? And finally I was like, what the hell are they, what is this all about? We have water. Why do we need that? And he was like, well,
Yeah.
the juice, right? The bath that's going into my dialyzer is mostly water. It's got like this careful mix of electrolytes that the doctors prescribe for me to help keep my blood chemistries in check. But if it wasn't just water, I'd be getting everything that's in basically what's coming through our sink right now, which has like chlorine and ammonia or
Yep.
chloramines, aluminum, lead, you name it. There's just a bunch of stuff in there, not to mention the stuff that can make you really sick and give you infections like bacteria or different sort of fungus or
It's not
algae
supposed
or
to be in our blood.
right. Yeah, it's not it we can sounds weird, we can drink it, right? Uh, but
Yep.
you run it through that dialyzer and it can be acutely or a long-term injury for the person that's dialyzing.
Absolutely.
So the water
Yeah.
specialist is, in the day that I saw somebody coming to the house, there wasn't such thing as a water specialist. It was just biomedical technicians that kind of covered everything: machines, water systems, doing the culturing and the sampling of the water. And I want to say maybe 10 years ago, some of the certification agencies here in the United States, one was called the National Nephrology Certification Organization, and another
Hmm.
called the Board of
Yep.
Nephrology Examiners, Nursing, and Technology, created tests and certifications specifically for the water because it's its own beast. And to understand
Yep.
the
It is.
potential contaminants, the consequences, the methods of filtering or deionizing or ion exchange, conditioning water,
Yep.
these sort of things. It's a lot. Uh, so I'll tell
Yep.
you the truth. I've taken probably a dozen different certification exams. That was the hardest exam that I've ever taken.
That's what I hear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
I hear.
it's
Yeah, I've heard
living,
that.
living in meaning that
Yeah.
it changes pretty rapidly. When I started, like the levels were so different. The acceptable levels of what's in the water compared to what's acceptable today, much different.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like tenfold uh, decrease in the microbial acceptability. It was 2,000 in the dialysate when I started, and now it's
Mm.
maximum 200 depending on which guideline you're following, probably 100 for what's called colony forming units. So again, complex, changes quickly, but super important. And what I wanted to go back to is I remember my aunt telling me before I'd ever been in a clinic, you better pay attention to water, and she was like deadly serious. And I was like,
Mm.
well, why is that so important? Like compared to things like cannulating and managing complications during treatment and setting up the machine. And she was like, because I can right now see in my head the 36 people that are sitting in my clinic, first shift, second shift, third shift, fourth shift. She had a clinic that she ran that had 4 shifts, right? She said, I can see all of their faces. And she was like, they're all on the same water. And if there's a problem with water, I have nightmares of seeing number one, number two, number three, number four, all the way to 36 having some sort of complication as serious as sudden death. And I just, that hit home for me.
Yeah.
It's super important. Great question.
Yeah. That is a nightmare.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And I try and convey that
So
same
I love that.
horror to students that I teach. I try and
Yeah.
convey that
Well.
same thing. It's like imagine, look at your classmates and imagine that bad water hit each of them one by one. Like, what do you do?
Oh
You know?
yeah. It'd be awful.
Yeah,
Really awful.
absolutely.
And it brings up such a. There's so much there that you could really unpack because um, a lot of people, unless like in your case, unless you know somebody on dialysis or you work in that space, um, it dialysis is really mysterious.
Yeah,
And sometimes people see, you can see the ads with a nice brightly lit, you know, days and people happily, you know, with their nurse getting dialysis. It's not like that in any center I've been in.
no,
Um, but when you think about that and just the not just the process of dialysis because that's a whole nother segment, um, but the lifestyle
yeah,
for the life impact for people on dialysis. I think sometimes like in the insurance space, we're focused a lot on cost containment measures because the cost is nuts. Most people don't know
yeah,
this can be $1-2 million a year. It's not uncommon. We see that often.
yeah.
And who the heck can that's an entity for pizza and root beer. If you I don't drink it, but it sounds good. But
Mm-hmm.
um, but the lifestyle for people on dialysis, um, maybe you could shed a little bit of light on that because, dialysis, as you well know, it changes every
Yeah.
single aspect of people's lives. But
Yeah, it does. And I think we've talked about this, and I've talked about it with many people in kind of our immediate circle. I think we have a lot of friends in common. Um, Growing up with somebody on dialysis, on home hemodialysis, who had a wife as a nephrology nurse is not the norm. And,
right,
well
yeah,
to do, nice neighborhood, he had cars and toys. And, like, honestly, I saw him as like a superhero because he didn't work. He was 22 years old when his kidneys failed, and his wife kind of took over all that, financial responsibility. He got to dialyze, and he got to spend time with the kid and the nephew. And, like, he took me horseback riding and jet skiing and sailboating and all kinds of
mhm,
stuff. And I remember him even when he was on, well, I never knew him when he wasn't on dialysis because I wasn't born yet, but he could lift an engine block. I mean, he was a big, strong guy. He liked to work on hot rods and things like this. So
yeah.
I think I had a jaded, um,
That is not the norm.
no, I had a jaded view of, what this dialysis was, to think that, like, you know, well, he was thriving. Now, he did not
Yeah.
live a normal lifespan. He died before he was 60. But he absolutely was thriving as far as his participation in family, friendships, things like this, hobbies. So I grew up thinking and feeling very, well, let me say, grew up with a jaded view. But then as I entered into the profession, I got to tell you, I've always loved what I've done, and I still do. I own a
Mhm.
vocational school where I train people that become dialysis technicians or specialty dialysis nurses, and I love doing that. But as you said, that's not the norm to see somebody thriving, a thriver. You know what I mean? More so, it's like surviving and survivors. And, with that, there's a lot of loss. Like in his
Oh,
case,
yeah.
it loss of his work and ability to provide in that manner, although he provided in a lot of other ways. But when you go to a standard, you know, an everyday clinic that's got those 36 chairs, you typically don't see people who are out sailboating and who've got a nephrology nurse wife that makes great money and is thriving professionally. You see kind of everyday Joes and Janes, right? And when you lose things
And they're
like the
wasting away,
yeah, yeah,
and they can't do the things that they want.
yeah,
The relationships suffer. They lose careers.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
so there's so much lost there. I mean, I just had this conversation with a young group of aspiring dialysis professionals, and it was like, let's just take away the job, and then what does that lead to? I mean, how many relationships suffer over financial stress? Like, how many
Oh, yeah.
divorces happen because of financial stress? So those sort of things trickle along with, and I'm not saying everybody out there gets divorced and there's fighting over money, but one thing after the other. You got that, okay. The financial stress, then what do you get from work besides money? I mean, a sense of purpose, contribution. Maybe it's your passion, what you do.
Self-esteem.
The dignity that you
Yeah.
get from work, I know for me is really important. And you know how I work, Kimberly. I probably message you at
Oh, yeah.
2 a.m. in the morning, like, like I got an idea or something like this. And I've always seen it as like 24 hours in the day to help somebody. I can sleep when
Yeah.
I'm trying to sleep more, by the way. But there's just so much,
Good boy.
yes, so much loss, right? When you talk about the physical side of it, dialysis is draining, and
Yeah.
most people are going there for 3, 4 hours or so, and maybe up to 5. But they got to drive to, or get a ride back. And while they're there, like, I always compare it to, Kimberly, you seem like you're very active. Have you ever ran a marathon?
Not for many decades.
You have before though. You have run one.
Oh, I had younger years, but they're in the rear view right now.
So how long did
But
it take
yeah.
you to run the
Well,
marathon?
yeah, because to your point, that machine has to do in 4 hours what your body would do in 24.
Yeah,
Every single ounce of blood
yeah.
that it has to filter out.
I mean, I always
And,
ask if
the
you run the
people that,
marathon, like how long would it take you?
oh gosh, for me now,
Well, oh,
it'd probably take me all day right now.
even in the heyday, let's okay. So if you had 24 hours, you could do it. But how fast does the one who wins the marathon take to run them? How long do they take?
Oh gosh, what, hour, two?
2 3 hours? I don't know. Like it's really a crazy amount of time for 26 miles, right? So I always ask people like, okay, you could probably finish it if you had 24 hours, but what if you like, however it could happen, somebody or there's a gun to your head, forced you to sprint the entire marathon. What would happen to you?
Oh, oh yeah.
Like you
Mhm.
might die, right? That's just too much for your body to do in such a short period of time. And I see that in the
Yeah,
standard in-center dialysis is that we try and like what your body would normally excrete through urine, we try and get it all out in 3 hours directly from your blood, which makes the blood pressure crash, the blood volume slow down, perfusion of blood to the brain and the heart
yeah,
slow down. And there's things like organ stunning, right, where people are having permanent damage to their organs as a result
yeah,
of this thing that's keeping them alive. Uh, so
yeah,
again, I had this jaded view growing up, but as I'm 47, turning 48 in a couple weeks. Um, the longer I stay in this, the more I want to like devote my time to. So if dialysis is a bridge, I'd like to be on the front of the bridge to help people to prevent, identify, delay the progression of whatever is causing their kidney failure. And it's not always,
yeah. Amen.
it's not always a preventable lifestyle thing, right? I mean, there are like these rare disorders now that we're finding out so much that,
Yeah.
quite honestly, pharmacology can or pharmaceuticals can help with. Or
Genetic
yeah,
or autoimmune kinds of things. Well, even in autoimmune cases, I think there's a lot we can do,
yeah,
but nobody's really talking about it. And I think, you bring up a great point because I really see that there's some real gaps
yeah,
in that level of awareness when you consider that, diabetes and high blood pressure, that accounts for almost 80% of these
yeah,
cases where people
yeah,
end up on dialysis, and
yep,
these things are preventable.
yep,
So, it's kind of like, I know early on in my career, it kind of felt like, there's a bunch of people standing along the sidelines, and you're watching these people on this conveyor belt. And just like what you said, there's a conveyor belt. When you think about wellness in general, it's not you're well or you're sick. There's a continuum
that's
of
right.
health that we're all on.
Yeah,
And, when you look at dialysis, you have some people that are back here, and you have some people that are being just moved along and they're not even paying attention. But the end of that conveyor belt, it ends at a cliff.
yeah,
And off the cliff, there's the dialysis chair.
that's right.
And it's great, right? Because I mean, dialysis is how we get to see our kids grow up and get to spend time with our loved ones. We get to see our grandbabies graduate, whatever.
That's why I
But
learned how
it's
to
a
ride a
hard
horse.
life.
It's the only way I
How
was
you
able
learn
to
how to
ride
ride
a.
a horse.
Yeah, I had my uncle and my dad also took me horseback riding, but so many great experiences because he had that life sustaining therapy. But you're right. Like I at this point in my life, I see this problem of just helping people to survive rather than to thrive. And like if they never got to that machine, they'd be in a lot better place. If they are on the
Oh,
machine,
amen. Well,
go
and
ahead,
all
Kimberly.
of us would be.
Yeah, you're
All of
right.
us would
Yeah,
be.
I'd gladly find something else to do, and I'm actively looking
Oh,
for
yeah.
to be on either end of that. To tell you the truth, yeah. I mean, I think I sent you a message last week that actually really excited me because when we talk about diabetes and hypertension, I recently got, well, at the beginning of the year, I had a little bit slight high blood pressure. I guess what is that like type 1 high blood pressure or the stage 1 high blood pressure, right? Not above 140 over 90. Uh, I'm 47. I had, all my lipid profiles were too high. And I saw a PA and she immediately prescribed me medication. I was like, I need to talk to my doctor. Like, is this something that, like, I need to be on this now, like, absolutely now? Or is there enough time for me to, hey, let's go through a quarter of some changes? That's what we did. We went through changes,
Mm.
right? And yeah, I
Oh,
think
that's
anybody who gets to
well
those
because
changes, go ahead.
it's because there's a reason why your cholesterols were high.
Yeah,
It's not just slap a band-aid on it, but why are they high?
yeah, yeah. Well, a lot of it had to do with sitting in this chair.
Yeah, I
Stuck at
hear
my
you.
off, stuck at my office all day, meeting, and
Yeah,
what did I do? How did I get into that position? What I was putting in my mouth and how much I was moving my body. And we made
yeah,
the changes. We changed the diet up. I don't want to say we changed it. We made changes that we can do. Changes that we can do because
yeah,
the doctor
mhm,
said don't go do something
yes,
that you're not going to be able to do forever. Like if you can start eating certain
right.
types of fish, if you can start eating certain types of seeds and avocados and kind of add some things in, do that. And then, she said, well, let's get your ass moving. And, I did that. And by the way, my
Oh, I
blood
like it.
pressure, everything's great. Quarter later, quarter
Isn't
later.
that amazing?
Yeah.
We're not trees.
Oh, that's a big
Sorry,
dog.
big dog.
Yeah.
People are not trees. We can move if we don't like where we're at. Jim Rohn used to say that if you don't like where you are, we'll move.
Yeah.
And I think that's
Sound
true.
just like
I
him.
think you have a really great point. 1 second here.
Yep.
I opened my door and my dog went crazy. Yeah, but I think we forget that, we were created to heal.
Yeah.
Our bodies were created to regenerate for the most part. I mean, sometimes you do damage that you can't heal, and
Yeah.
sometimes there are things that you can't avoid altogether. Sometimes, to your point earlier, sometimes you can't avoid dialysis in all cases,
Yeah.
but there is always something that you can do to make your situation, or your life, or your health a little bit better than it was yesterday.
Agreed. Agreed.
Whether that means, delaying that so that you have time for a preemptive transplant, or so that you have time to understand about all the choices that you have
Yeah.
for if you want to replace your kidneys function, or, do you want to just have conservative management and,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, without any effort, you're just kind of swept off until you end up where you end up, and you have no control. And I don't know anybody who wants to live like that.
No, that's for sure. When as we talk about options and choices, I mean, my doctor gave me pretty generalized orders, right? Kind of make some changes and get moving. Uh, she didn't tell me what to do, like, go run, go
Mhm.
bike, go. She just said get moving, be more active. She didn't tell me, how to cook the meals. She just said, make some improvements on these sort of things, these sort of things, these sort of things. And I don't know if you remember last week, I was pretty excited about this concept. I ran into a company that they actually uh, have dietitian and physician designed medical meal planned meal prep.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I was
You
like,
shared that.
this is kick ass. Because I was like,
Mhm.
you know, they were telling me like, hey, eat low cholesterol food, right? I was like, oh God, okay, now you want me to go do some research or some homework? Uh, so I ordered it, right? And I got some meal planned and meal prep for specifically for high cholesterol. And this company they have like for diabetes. And the reason I found them was because of the podcast. They were like, hey, we'd like to kind of share our story. I had them on a couple, maybe 3, 4 weeks
Ah,
ago, where they have specific staged for CKD stage 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, specific to the stage
wow.
meal plan designed by a dietitian and a nephrologist. So, like, what excites me about that is like anybody who goes to the gym or makes changes for their health, right? It's pretty hard to make the right changes if you don't have explicit instructions. It's also pretty difficult to cook a
Yeah.
meal if you just get the ingredients, right? Like, hey, I'm Hispanic, my wife is
Especially if you have no
Filipino,
energy.
and especially
Yeah.
that side of it. You got all this stuff to manage, and then it's like, hey, go do the, do research and, make a science project on your diet. And I kind of feel like it's a great idea to subsidize that exercise for patients while they're learning, so they get it right
Yeah.
while they're learning, because everybody can screw up and give up
Absolutely.
while they're working on it,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
And
Yeah,
I
and I
can't.
would say that's probably the bulk for people with late stage kidney disease or dialysis. We get a lot of questions like that, and I think it's gotten better. But back in the day, I'd see people in the home, and they'd come home with a manual like this of
Yeah,
do's and don'ts, what to eat. And they're like,
yeah,
nothing I can eat.
yeah. So
And we
just give up.
started teaching. Yeah, I can't eat anything. I can't read. I'm tired. I have uremia. I feel like crap, and you want me to read this big book,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and everything just says don't. And I think people get tired of that. I think what I recently talked with one of our members who said, she said the nurse gave me some great advice. She said instead when the dietitian comes around, instead of just taking what she gives me, ask I know what I can see all the don'ts, but what do I eat?
yeah,
Don't tell me what not to eat.
yeah,
What do I eat?
yeah.
So
I'll never forget. I had and by the way, I'm sure a lot of people this will resonate with them, but I see the patients in the clinic, and what sort of news do they usually get from the dietitian? Is it good news or bad news?
your phosphorus is too high and your potassium's too high and you need to take your binders and
Who wants
yeah.
to hear all that, right? Like, so I still see so many people's faces, even though I'm not working in the clinics and with patient care anymore, but I can see their faces when they see the dietitian pass through from the hallway into the treatment floor. They
Yeah.
pretend like they pretend like they're asleep, right? And then the dietitian will come by and drop a
No.
paper on their table, and the dietitian goes off, and then they pop up and they go, Morales, what does this mean? Uh, I don't know how we get over that. How do we get past that? Like, nobody wants to hear bad news.
Well, I think, well, I think to your point too, there is whether we mean to or not, the end result is there. And I think sometimes unknowingly clinicians we can there's a lot of medical shaming.
Yeah,
Your phosphorus is too high.
yeah.
You need to quit eating or drinking such and so,
As soon as
or
that
you
finger
need to
comes
quit
up, it's over
smoking.
for me. Yeah,
Oh yeah, you should. We say don't shit all over people. Ha, get it?
yeah,
I,
yeah. Don't shit on them, huh?
quit telling people what they should do, right? Life is hard enough, and you think about most of these people end up in the chair because of diabetes.
Right,
And diabetes is ridden with it's all my fault. Well, no, it's not your fault. There's pathophysiology, there's
right.
physiology at play.
Yeah,
And there's a reason I love it. People would say, well, my sugars are high. It's because I have no self control. I have this horrible sweet tooth. No, you don't. That's physiology.
hmm,
You're
hmm.
hungry for that stuff because sugar isn't getting into the cell.
Right,
And people aren't stupid. I think, for many people, once they get a grasp in a very simple, understandable way, and they understand, wouldn't you like to know? I mean, you know how your body works, but most people would really appreciate an owner's manual,
yeah,
right? And
yeah.
and when they have some
When you
simple
start sending
concepts
those
that
out,
make sense, they get it.
yeah,
Yeah, we should Michael, that's our next business.
yeah.
You know, right? I think
Human owner
Dr.
manual.
Oz did that, didn't he? The owner's manual,
I
yeah.
don't know, but we need to give that to parents too. I mean, I can think about when you talk about the health shaming. There was, I don't know, more than 10 years ago. I ended up in ER, and I had chest pain. It turned out to be GERD, and I have a, what do you call this?
Yeah,
A hernia. I forgot what they called it. Oh
yeah.
gosh,
Hiatal
hiatal
hernia.
hernia, right? But they rushed me in, and I remember this kid in the lobby and his mom, and they were both like 4 feet tall and 4 feet wide. I mean, they were just, morbidly obese.
Yeah.
He was probably about 12, and he was sitting out there in so much pain. And they just walked me right in, and I was like, no, no, and they're like, nope, get your ass in here. You're triage, right? So eventually he ended up next to me, in, in the next bed.
Yeah.
And I hear the conversation through the curtain, and the mom's, telling, oh, he's had, a really bad stomach ache today. And the doctor, she's, just very blunt. And she was like, what have you guys been eating? And, prior to this stomach ache. And she was like, oh, McDonald's. And, what did he eat? Oh, he ate a 20 pack of chicken nuggets and a supersized fry and a supersized Coke or something like this. And she just laid into this mom. I mean, this is your fault. Your son's type 2 diabetic. His stomach's not moving. He didn't buy that for himself. You're killing him. In not it. I mean,
Yeah.
even I said it bluntly, but it was
And that
putting away.
doesn't help people. That doesn't move people. It doesn't empower people.
Hmm.
It doesn't help people to step up and rise to their best level. Um, yeah, that's hard. We see that all the time, especially on that's the life for dialysis folks.
Yeah,
A lot of dialysis folks, they live with a lot of shame. They feel less than.
yeah.
Um, so how do you what do you think, with your industry expertise in healthcare and the just a broad range of experiences that you have, and especially with an entrepreneurial mindset, what do you think are some of the things that we can do to, as an industry or as a concept, how can we better support these folks before they get to dialysis? I mean, what do you think from a larger scale in the ecosystem? What do we need to do as a healthcare industry to really make a difference there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's a lot of effort, uh, really grassroots effort towards what you're talking about. And I mean, I see it from, I think one of the posts you put up, you talk about people like Mark Coronel and some of the other guests that we've had on the podcast. But, there's people that are taking it in their own hands to talk to communities. And I can't say how
Yeah.
important it is to kind of have somebody that you can identify with saying it, you know. If we look at the highest incidence communities, African American and Hispanics or Latinos, right? To actually have grassroots initiative in towards education of prevention, but also, I mean, some people, I think everybody, especially adults, we need to know like why, why should I not?
Yeah.
Why do I need to manage my diet? Why do I need to exercise? Why do I need to sleep? Which that's been a big one for me. You become more prone to these
And
chronic
how?
illnesses. Exactly. Like you said, like we said, like how do I cook the
Yeah.
meal? What foods?
Yeah.
What exercises are going to be most efficient for me? Because why do a lot of people eat fast food? Because maybe they don't have time to do the cooking. So
That's the
what?
number one thing.
Yeah,
When you think about it, all these, we always talk about habits of self-care because the habits that you create are going to magically take you to that's why that's why we're all where we are right now. It's because of the things that we've done in the days past without thinking about it. That's why we are where we are.
yeah,
And
yeah,
most of us, you look at around, most of us, we go all day and to your point, we don't have time. So we grab a cup of coffee, a muffin in the morning, we're out the door.
yep,
And then of course, all we've got are carbs and we wonder why we have no energy. And then we're
yep.
reaching for a Coke or something like that. And
Mm-hmm.
all we're doing is it's like watered down gas in a Ferrari. It doesn't drive so good
You're
after a while.
good analogy. Yeah. So I think just evangelism as a whole is a great low cost start to things. I mean, it doesn't take a whole lot of money to get people moving, people telling their stories. Now, with the amount of money that we
Yeah.
spend, like you just mentioned, kind of some of the per head numbers that we spend on CKD5 and dialysis patients, right? When we look at, is it proportionate the amount of money that we're putting into prevention? And from my knowledge, it's not. Um,
Well, okay. So the cynic in me is going to come out, Mike.
hmm.
So, and when the cynic comes out, just know she won't stay. Okay, but there's this cynical side of me that we know where's the money.
Right,
Where's the money in keeping people off the dial? Because
right.
I make money when I put people in the chair. Same thing. Where's the money if we get everybody off of these high cost SGLT2s and GLP-1s and
Yeah,
insulins and whatnot? Where's
yeah,
the money? Where am I
yeah,
going to make my money from?
yeah. We're aligned there.
Do it anyway.
We're aligned there. I mean, like I said, I've made my entire life, most of it professionally, through healthcare, specifically dialysis. Uh, Looking at other opportunities, they're far and few. To be on the front side of it, to be on the back side of it, which if we call it a bridge, like we don't do the greatest job on getting people transplanted. They're not
No.
all avoidable, right? Those that go on dialysis, not all avoidable. We don't do the greatest job towards transplantation, and you could say the same thing about that as well. Where's the money in that? And I'm not gonna drop any names here, but like I don't know that certain organizations would make money from either side of that bridge. They only make money on the bridge.
Yeah, and yet I still say for those who are in that industry, when you do the right things for the right reasons in the right way, that money it will show up for you.
Agreed.
But again, that there's a cynic and there's a Pollyanna, and one's here and one's here. So
Yeah. I mean, I on that side, do the right things for the right reason. If you're on the bridge, I think that you know the 2019 Advancing American Kidney Health Initiative was really on the right track of the philosophy of how things should be done. We should increase the utilization of home dialysis, and maybe people would see what I saw growing up more often. Somebody who was
yeah,
living life still and not.
there's some great people. There's some great people doing great things in that space right now.
There are, and they're the Davids of the world.
Yes.
They're not the
Yeah.
Goliaths for sure,
Yeah.
but I think that good things are coming for those organizations. I'm sure that we're probably synced up on that right now as far as those that are pushing peritoneal dialysis and taking home dialysis to the home rather than kind of saying you could go home or did you know there's a home, but like let's
Yeah.
show you how to do this, right? um,
And helping them. I have a friend here in my neighborhood. I don't know if you've heard of Herewith. They're phenomenal. Shout out to Veronica and her
mhm.
team. But they actually, they have, it's like Uber. It's like an app.
Oh wow.
I don't know if you've seen them. She'd be great. She'd be great for you to interview, by the way.
Hmm.
It's like an app. You go in, and it's for caregivers to come in. They've been trained and certified to be dialysis helpers. A lot of them are retired nurses or whatever, and they come to the home and they help people who would like to do dialysis at home, but can't. And their caregiver rates, it's like Uber.
That's
I
great.
I think if we get innovative around some of those things that really help people come home. To your point, people definitely have a better lifestyle. And to your point earlier, having to suck out every drop of blood in 4 hours, it's hard.
Yeah,
And there's a lot of damage that happens to the body in that process as well. But, gosh, at home, people can have more control over their schedule. They could, maybe make dialysis a little gentler, maybe a little slower, a little longer.
right.
You can do some other things. And
Yeah,
so it really gives people, next to transplant, and avoidance altogether by taking care of yourself earlier,
yeah.
right? So,
Somewhat a sense of rehabilitation or normalcy, right? My
yeah,
uncle,
just
he
to not,
talking about the draining, the drain filling, the dialysis fog, the dialysis hangover, right?
yeah,
My uncle, he used to dialyze 7 p.m. to midnight, 3 times a week. He kept a
mm,
standard schedule, a little bit longer than the normal, 3-4 hours. But
yeah,
at the end of the night, like really the first job was, and forgive me, it was like clean the shit up. I'm going to bed. That was him. It was like I'm done. Like dialysis is over. I'm going to bed. He did it that time of the night because he could, at the time as TiVo, He would record his favorite shows and then watch his shows, and I was like his waiter, and we'd all get him the stuff he likes to eat and drink during dialysis. He had a very uh, like a ritual of habits that he did during dialysis. But at the end of the
Oh,
night, he was wasted, and he'd go to sleep, and he'd be able to wake up, and then after the night's rest, he felt good. But to your question earlier of what's dialysis like for people on the machine, like it's going to be very difficult to go to work after dialysis. Uh, with that
yeah,
drained feeling, and I follow a lot of the social media um, patient groups and people who are
the
just
group.
sharing their stories.
Yeah.
And there's a guy out of Texas that, man, I love this guy. He's an asphalt truck driver, or not a concrete truck driver, and he goes to work afterwards. And man, I just see it in his eyes. He's so tired.
Oh,
He tells his
that's
story.
so hard.
He gives account of what treatment he's on, Kimberly. That's how notable each day is to
Mm,
him. It's like this is treatment number X, and I hope this guy
wow.
gets a kidney really soon here, because he's
Doesn't
definitely
that,
living
it
life
reminds me
despite.
of somebody just marking off days on the prison walls, what that feels like.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's almost kind of what I get from his. He's on TikTok, and that's kind of what I get from his the posting is just like you said, marking it off. He shares every step of his journey, and I think that's another thing that's could really help a lot of people is more people sharing their story. Dialysis
Mhm.
is, or I should say, kidney disease is, like you said, mysterious and unknown. Sometimes I'll go to high schools and talk to their career pathway groups and talk about healthcare and how do you get into healthcare and blah blah blah, right? And it's like, well, most of the time that's in inner city. Most of the time it's ethnic groups, African American, Hispanic, Latinos, poor demographic. And I'll say, how many of you know somebody who's type 2 diabetic? And every hand goes up. And how many of you know somebody who has high blood pressure? Every hand goes up. How many of you know somebody with kidney disease? And less hands go up. How many of you know somebody on dialysis? Less hands go up. How many of you have ever heard of a dialysis technician or a dialysis nurse?
Crickets.
Crickets. Crickets. Um,
Yeah.
we need more people out there to help these people, but that's how untold it is. And then I say, did you know what the top two causes of kidney disease are? And when it let them know that, they're like, oh my god, my dad, my mom, my grandma, my uncle, like everybody's got this in my family.
Ah,
So they're at high risk for, they're in the waiting line if they don't get this under control, or if somebody doesn't help them to get it under control.
I know you know Dory Chattel. I think we were talking about
Yes,
her
yes.
earlier, and she and I talk a lot about the twin pillars. I call them the twin pillars of fear and
Mm-hmm.
hope. People need that level of awareness, not to scare them into a corner, but to get their attention.
Yep.
But then the other side of that, which maybe we could shift the conversation to, a little more hopeful. But fear is what the little bit that awareness when people see their labs, for instance, in our coaching programs, that's when people have a light bulb moment. And they get real motivated when they can see their GFR and now they know what that means. They go, oh gosh, how come I can't tell you how many times people have said, how come nobody ever told me this before?
Yeah.
How come nobody's, we don't want to tell people bad news because we don't want to bring them down, but doggone it, you're not helping anybody who's on that conveyor belt by saying, hey, if you don't tell them there's a cliff, well, doggone it on you.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Tell them that there's a cliff so that they can get off of that conveyor belt.
Yeah.
And I think that's the next part is that once we have that awareness, to your point, or fear, a little, just a healthy dose, just enough to make them aware of where they are. The next order of business is to we drizzle hope liberally, like a like a shaker of salt with really big holes in it, right? We put that everywhere. And I
Mm-hmm.
think to your point, there's so many really inspirational figures out there. We have so many people who, we've worked with that have been able to double kidney functions, and avoid dialysis, or people who have acute kidney failure. And and are able to then understand what got them there, and how to help their kidneys come back and how to protect that from declining in the future. How, where do you see the value and the mechanisms in healthcare today for that kind of of hope that fuels the behavior change, everything that you were talking about? How do you help somebody who understands, yeah, I need to move and I need to eat differently and I need to do this and I want to do this? There's a shift from shoulding and needing to I want to and I
Shoulds gonna
can, I
always
will,
have
I must.
another name, another word, meaning for me now, thanks to you. Shooting on people. Um,
It's a dirty word.
no, another great question. You know, evangelism, like making it a normal part of conversation. Like, who wants to talk about this stuff? People who have it or who are, sick or who have somebody that they're related to or they're professionals. But one of the reasons why we started this podcast was you mentioned that we have like athletes and we have other, sort of figures on here that have nothing to do with healthcare or dialysis. We had a tattoo podcast, right? But we want to commingle the conversations of things that people would probably just pass through and like click
Everyday life.
yeah, everyday life. But now let's talk a little bit about like health, and whether it's mental health, physical health, prevention, staying active, eating good, avoiding vices, drugs and alcohol, things like this. I think that needs to be a normal part of conversation. The other side, and this
Yeah.
two-part answer for me is, I can't. I think back to a time where I consulted for a couple hospitals in China, and I visited them. Then they visited the institution that I own, and they wanted kind of the whole landscape of dialysis. Right? They brought two CEOs, talked about reimbursement, talked about practices, and modalities, and the USRDS, and all this sort of stuff. And when we talked about coverage at CKD 5, they both about shit their pants. They were like, "Are you guys stupid? Like, why would you wait till the end to provide
Wow.
coverage for care? They need to be
Wow.
educated way before that." So I think about,
Oh, amen.
yeah, I think about pre-ESRD or CKD education and the utilization of it here in the United States, which that's another thing that we're actually working in some partnerships with to make accessible CKD education that's efficient enough. Because I mean, why are people not doing it when it's reimbursable? It's I'm going to be very blunt.
Yeah. What?
It's a heavy lift for them and not a very good payoff for them.
Yeah.
But it doesn't negate the fact that people need that and people would benefit from it. Of the small number of people who get CKD education, they do much better. They end up with better utilization of home modalities, better management of the comorbidities like type 2 diabetes and hypertension. So, again, I think two-part answer there is, why are we waiting so long to provide access to coverage?
Yeah.
And then two, even with the access to the coverage and the reimbursement for it, why are we not doing it?
Right. And the ROI is so strong there.
Yeah,
I think part of the other reason is that ROI is kind of mysterious. It's kind of fuzzy. The
yeah.
best study I found was published. It was a study of about 20,000 people. It
Mm-hmm,
was a fantastic study.
mm-hmm,
It was published in the American Journal of Managed Care, where it showed that, as people advance in stage of kidney disease, their overall cost of care ticks up by 57%. Now,
mm-hmm.
that can be really fuzzy and nebulous because it's tied to their diabetes and it's tied to their heart disease and it's tied to obesity and smoking. It's tied to a lot of things, but all those are the things that are pushing them on that conveyor belt toward the cliff,
Yeah,
right? So,
yep.
and I just wonder because I know, and that took me years to find that study, quite honestly, to be
I'd
able
love if you could
to
share that with me.
articulate.
Yeah, I would really love
Yeah,
if
I'll
you'd
send it
share
to you.
that. Yeah,
It,
but
it was a really strong study that really demonstrates, obviously, if somebody costs twice as much when they go to stage 3, from stage 3 to stage 4, why in the world wouldn't you want to back them
that's
up,
right. That's right.
right?
Yeah,
And not spend that. So, people say there's no money in that, and I can take you to the mattress on that. There is money there.
Yeah,
And when you look at, for health plans, I mean, you look at where employers are. Most employers are sick and tired of paying a PEPM, and
that's right.
they don't get to see where that comes from. Or I sat with a couple of guys in construction, owners of this company, and they said to me, the owner, he said, I got into business not to do healthcare, but I have to. That's why
Yeah,
I'm here,
yep,
because
yep,
I don't have a choice. And yet, people need good, reliable healthcare. That's large to a large degree. That's why they pick who they're going to work with.
right.
And so, for a health plan to invest in these kinds of programs, it not only reduces the cost of the plan for everybody, but can absolutely help hold on to those things. So,
Yeah,
but
yep.
again, not a quick fix to your point earlier, where maybe that's just a little, I don't know, but the cost savings and the ROI is definitely there. Maybe just we just need to share it more.
Agreed. And there are some models of education that I think really take off what would be considered the burden. Because teaching's hard, right, Kimberly? I mean, it's easier to treat somebody
Yeah,
than to teach them how to take care of themselves. Let's just be
absolutely.
frank about that. I
And
mean,
I think that's probably why we don't have more companies doing that.
yep,
There's not an easy button for it. You have to have a personal, trusted therapeutic helping relationship to really
yeah,
teach and empower, and drive that, drive people to where they can choose for themselves to incorporate some of these changes, which takes some effort, right? Takes some effort to move.
yeah.
It takes some effort to go shopping and learn how to cook,
Hmm.
without you know spending all day in the kitchen. So it takes some time.
We had a
So, well, let me ask you this question. Oh, go ahead.
we had a LinkedIn user. There's a couple of comments in on my screen right now. One that I think kind of deserves attention is the that cognitive dysfunction is a problem after treatment for hemodialysis patients.
Absolutely.
And I kind of the way I talk to students is simple things that might seem simple. Getting navigating your smartphone, things like this can be more challenging. Navigating your email or windows on your screen, things like this. And from my knowledge, and correct me or compliment me in this, uh, the perfusion and the oxygen changes and that lack of to the brain really creates a lot of that cognitive dysfunction.
Absolutely. When you think about it, a lot of times people go in, and especially, when they don't really understand how to live with these fluid and diet restrictions without, those can be real, they can be torturous.
Mm-hmm.
When you're thirsty and you can't have a drink because you can only drink 3 cups a day, that's hard,
Yeah, yeah,
right? And so when they come in and they're holding on to 8 to 10 pounds, right? 4 or 5 kilos, 3, 4, 5 kilos, that it's kind of like having a little hydrocephalus, right?
yeah,
You got all
yeah,
that extra fluid. It's not just in your ankles, it's in your brain. And now that machine's going to try to suck it all off and
yeah,
filter the blood and remove all that extra fluid that you can't get off. And it's going to do it really fast. And now that is really hard.
yeah.
Um,
Kimberly, I also want to.
yeah.
So
So energy.
I can see who the comment's coming from right now, and I just want to give a shout out to this person and acknowledge the impact that he's had in my thoughts and my perception of care. Jeff Park is online watching us. I cannot tell you how appreciative I am of this person, and maybe I'll get some comments on this because he's I think even on his profile it's something along the lines of the most vocal disruptor in the industry, or but somebody who's really taught me a lot through conversation on LinkedIn. Not to say we always align on everything, yeah, because nobody does, right? Nobody aligns on everything. But he's really, when we talk about the thrive and survive when you talked about the cynic in you, I think there are several synergies in what we're talking about here, and again, I just want to shout him out and thank him for staying strong as an advocate and speaking his voice. So thanks, Jeff.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's, not to talk for hours and hours here, but there's also there's cognitive changes, there's emotional changes, and a lot of times when people feel vulnerable and fearful and not supported, nobody's sticking up for them. I think,
Hmm.
you know, I know we've had folks where, um, they express anger,
Yeah.
or they have emotions that are not warm and fuzzy,
Yeah.
to put it lightly. And then they get shunned. I've seen people who have been blocked from accessing their benefits because quite honestly, because they pissed off a care manager
Hmm.
or somebody in the dialysis center. And I think it's really important for people in healthcare and people who are working with really vulnerable folks is that wherever we see anger, it's always in front of fear.
Yeah.
And when people are backed into a corner, anger is not always a bad thing.
Yeah. I
Anger
agree.
is what gives us energy to be able to create a change, or to get somebody to pay attention to us, or to make I can't get what I need,
Yeah.
so I don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
Or I just think that's important. Anger is not always a bad thing, and some things are healthy for us to be angry about,
Hmm.
and then to take that and shift that into, well, what are we going to do about it so we can get
Right.
something different,
I
so
agree.
we can get that different outcome. So,
It, it,
for you, what's next for you, Michael?
oh
What
gosh.
are you most excited about moving forward?
Yeah. So we didn't talk about the whole life career, but I've done a lot. Nephrology, dialysis has been the main thing. I've worked in nursing homes as well, ran nursing homes, took them to sale, remote patient monitoring, and during the pandemic also ran a very large public health organization that was running testing and telehealth and vaccinations and all these sort of things for county contracts. But today, um, you know, I am. I recently left a position in medical device. It's a dialysis company or dialysis machine company. I'm really looking for something that I can kind of put my feet into and sit in for the rest of my career. I do own several businesses, and those really align perfectly with that. I would like to find a position or a consulting role in something that's on one of those sides of the bridge or both. So I'd love to find something else to do, Kimberly, besides dialysis.
There is no moss under your feet.
But
You're a
within the
mover and
but within that line, though,
yeah.
like I said, before or after is really where I'd love to reside for the rest of my career. So in prevention, identification, delay of progression, or on the transplant side. And I can just say that, I'm only now learning, and thank you for those people who are, especially our LinkedIn followers, that are helping me to understand what advocacy looks like, and, what anger,
Mm,
how to move anger into action. But
yeah.
I'd also love to find something that is just simply in that realm of advocacy, to be able to
Mm,
magnify voices in a way that would be heard and not shunned, in a way that would be actionable, organizable, um, to really get some movement. Because I do think we're in a better place than we've ever been as far as our ability to do. I remember, growing up in this field, it was always, African Americans are higher incidence of high blood pressure and CKD. And now we're finding out things that, it's not just lifestyle. These genetic markers, like, I mean, blowing my mind, the
yeah.
APOL1, right? Blowing my mind. It's like,
Yeah.
for how many years have we been just telling people that it's their lifestyle? Well, no, you have a
Or the
genetics. Yeah,
complement cascade.
that's right.
The complement cascade is pretty sexy too.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
to your point.
yeah. So I'd like to be on that side of things. I I can't help but feel like I'll continue to be called in the dialysis world, but I would love to
I hope
be.
so.
I would really hope I'm not. To tell you the truth, I would love to be on the part that's moving. You know, the part that is moving. I mean, dialysis. We've been doing it the same way for my entire life. You know, there's best practices have changed, things like this, but the dialysis machine is, they've not really changed the.
Oh, the change is so slow.
Yeah,
Look at what's coming with the hemodiafiltration. How long is that going to take for that to hit us
it's about the first
in the
thing that has
U.S.?
actually got the chance to change the treatment itself, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
innovation has been so slow in that field.
yeah,
So,
yeah. So yeah, I
or the
mean,
whack. I would love
yeah,
to see that.
yeah,
I would love to see the whack come out, the
yep.
wearable artificial kidney.
Is that the PD one?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Uh,
there's a PD
He's
one and an HD one.
correct.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think AWAC and WAC, right? If I'm not mistaken. I don't know if that's the same
correct.
names or not. If they still have the same names or if they've
I think, yeah, I think
changed them
so.
up.
And I haven't, there, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, we heard a lot about it, and
Hmm.
I haven't heard much about it
Yeah,
lately. So,
yeah,
and
you're
then of
right.
course you've got xenotransplant.
Yep,
That's
yep.
kind of exciting.
I mean, I'll tell you
Um,
one organization that really excites me is the UKRO, uh, the University Kidney Research Organization, where definitely check their website out.
yeah.
They still got a runway before them. I think before they get this down, but synthetic and stem cell populated kidneys that really have a chance of, yeah. So not xeno, not
Oh,
really not a swap or of a cadaveric or a living donor, but synthetically created and stem cell populated, which,
that would be wicked awesome. And
yeah,
when I've talked to nephrologists, they tell me, the hard thing about stem cell is that the kidney is so multifaceted. There's so
that's right.
many different kinds of cells in the kidney. That's why the stem cell is difficult.
Yeah.
Or look at, I don't know if you follow Thomas Wines out of
No,
UC Santa Barbara. He is a guy you want to follow.
I'll check them out.
And if you don't know him, look for him on LinkedIn. His last name Weimbs.
Okay.
Fantastic, just a sharp guy. And he's doing some amazing research through nutrition,
Mm.
specifically through ketosis
Oh wow.
and how that process. And he's got several really strong clinical studies out there, and he's getting, especially for polycystic kidney disease, where
Mm.
he's getting the same kind of results that we're seeing in some of the really high cost meds.
Wow.
And of course, the difficulty there is where you're going to find the funding for that research because
Yeah.
big pharma is not behind
Yeah,
it,
they're not
right?
gonna.
So,
Yeah, it takes away
but
from
his,
them. Yeah. So you're saying that
and not
like what they're
only
seeing
that,
is ketosis can reduce the incidence of the cysts?
yeah, 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 well, yeah, because it decreases. Okay, so you got to get, he and Dr. TJ O'Neill were on one of sessions for my podcast,
Hmm.
and uh, when you hear him and TJ O'Neill going back and forth, that's very exciting. And when
Yeah.
you look at, I think for me, the real takeaway in that conversation was the impact it had on inflammation.
Hmm.
And so, not just that role with polycystic kidney disease, but, and I'm not a doctor or a research scientist. I know enough to get really excited and know
Closer
that have
than
a
me.
gazillion questions of another lifetime, right? But that whole process, I can see some of what he's doing with his nutritional. He's got a keto citra product. Actually, it's got our houses on it now, but
Hmm.
where really blocking that inflammatory pathway, and I can see that playing a role. And I mean, how many conditions are,
Yeah.
inflammation is a
Yes.
huge factor in
Yes.
everything
Yep.
from autoimmune to cancers and diabetes and heart
Yeah.
disease and obesity. And I just think, yeah, I'm really excited about some of the work that he's doing.
Well, they might
I
have a
don't,
good.
maybe you should go into research.
Very open to that. Like I said, I just I call myself old maybe because I feel old, but I, I I want to do something different at this point in my life that is really moving, that is really shaking, that really is going to be closer towards reducing the incidence of CKD5 versus
Yeah.
having just waiting for them to come in and treat. And they need good people. If you end up on dialysis, you need great people. You need people who care. You need people who are skilled, who are compassionate, empathetic, and I'll always want to train those people. But if there was no need for dialysis out there, I
Really
would
need
love
that.
it. I would love it, man. I'd love if
Oh,
everybody could stay off
that's why I
dialysis.
love you so much, Michael.
Love you too. Yeah, no, this
Well,
has
and you're
been
not
great.
kidding anybody. You you will never retire. I can never see you retire. My husband
Yeah,
always asks me, "Well, what do you think you'll do when you retire?" Oh, I don't know, probably the same thing.
yeah. I so back to my first career, right? They used to tell iron workers, you don't retire, you die, and I feel the same way, because as long as there's a breath and there's something inside of here and here, I'll always want
Yeah,
to use it,
con
whether it's for
yeah,
monetization
contribute.
and supporting my family, but or hopefully one day we don't need money either, and I can just do good things to do good things. But I will always want to
Oh,
use
yeah.
what's inside of me to help other people for sure.
I love that. I love that.
Thanks, Kimberly.
That's why you're one of my favorites, Michael.
Likewise, I
And
think we clicked right
every
away.
time I get to see you, every time I see you at events, or every chance I get to talk to you, there are some folks that you spend time with, and you walk away, and you feel really inspired about where we can go as a people, as an industry, the good that we can do in the world. And you're one of those. You're one of those delicious souls. So,
Likewise,
well, thanks
likewise.
for letting me steal your podcast. What a
No,
treat!
it was an honor to have you host and me be on the other end. I do want to just highlight, and hopefully he's watching us or he'll catch this episode. But the last time we met, we had a really great conversation with Keith Edwards. If you, I think it was at the ADC in Las Vegas, and he's
Yeah.
just somebody that I want to acknowledge because I think he's also one of those people I look forward to seeing at
Yeah.
the conferences, and I always walk away with
Yeah,
an inspiration
absolutely.
that things can be done better, that we can be better people. So hopefully we keep working on this circle, and never know, we might all change the world one day, right?
Hey, there you go. No pressure, Keith. Adam is another one.
That's right,
What he's
Adam.
doing with Vitality.
Yep,
I'm telling you. Okay,
yep.
well, there you
Kimberly.
go. Maybe it'll be like the Kidney Avengers. Can I be the Elastigirl?
I'm gonna be the monk, I guess. I don't know. We were talking the other night. I said we were talking about martial arts, and my Raja Jackson said, he used to like to watch the kung fu movies. I was like, I got the haircut. I wanted it when I
Oh,
was a
David.
kid. Yeah, I wanted it when I was a kid. My parents wouldn't let me have it, and now it's just what it is. So,
Yeah.
thanks again, Kimberly.
Hey, that's coming back in style, Michael.
Is
You
it?
know that, right? I see a lot of, yeah, it looks good. It looks good on you, my friend.
Flattery will get you nowhere. Thanks, Kimberly.
Worth a
You have a
try.
great rest of your afternoon, and everybody have a great Memorial weekend. Bye bye.
Ciao. Bye.
Bye bye.